Good morning, everybody. It's 11:30. I'm starting with my slot and going to talk a little bit about disruptive innovation. Quick intro, my name is Schauer. I run a management consultancy firm focusing exclusively on the legal sector. But not to worry, I'm not going to bore you with any legal stuff. This is a methodology framework, a theory that might be relevant to your business that you run, and I've sort of taken out a few key points I think are quite crucial. There we go. So we're going to cover a quick overview what types of innovations you can get. We all hear the buzzword disruption all the time, and in my opinion it's being overused like any good buzzwords. And I'm going to help us a little bit separate what types there are, and that's going to be our foundation to then go on and think about how can we protect ourselves if we are the incumbent and are facing disruption, or actually we want to kick the big boys out of their game, and how do I then exploit disruption properly and inform my strategy accordingly. A little bit about how I need to think internally if I want to really go for it, and how there is an ever-evolving strategy development process. So, big titles, I'm not going to bore you more with it, but let's crack on. The types of innovation are probably best explained with this little diagram. So, the theory goes that if you look at the orange line, this is what your mainstream consumer of your product or service can actually utilize. All offerings, all services, all products start at some point at a early stage and an inferior stage, and they eventually cross the line of what your consumers actually really need, and you get then somewhat lost in the game of competition. You will develop new features, more productivity, and fancier, better, brighter products. But what happens then? And let's see if this cable is long enough. What happens then is you create this gap of a surplus, and with this surplus, there is the opportunity for any low-end disruptors to just say, you know what, you're over-serving your customers, therefore they're overpaying. There is a bunch of customers, a small number in all fairness, but they are down here that would be far happier to pay less for your services and your products at a lower quality. They are okay, think about a fancy barista. Not everybody is into flat whites and mochachinos and whatever you can get. Some people just want to have a nice filter coffee because actually they just need to stay awake because they are running the second shift of the day, and they got to get on with their lives and not spend a fortune on it, and definitely don't want to queue up for it either. So, if you say this is the coffee business, and up here you have your fancy barista, and down here you have a quick canteen-style coffee shop with filter coffee, then they are gonna start changing the dynamics of the market, because they'll start down here, and over time they will build their own brand, their own identity, they will grow their own customer base, and slowly and steadily that customer base will get used to their standard, and they will be trapped in the same game of constantly evolving your products and services. So they will, slowly but steadily move away from their filter coffee as well, or just enhance that, type of filter coffee, use different paper, whatever it is, and slowly go up the curve again. So that's the theory around low-end disruption and how that works, the dynamics of that. On the other side, there is sustaining innovation, which is what I already mentioned, just making existing products just that little bit better again. And key difference here, a key takeaway for you is sustaining innovation typically, not always, Uber would be an example, but typically the incumbent is far better placed to drive sustaining innovation because they already got a brand out there in the market, they're recognized as an existing customer base, they have a far better understanding, they are, they're just bigger, better known, and they can drive that far further than say, you just come to town and open another coffee shop again, but you haven't got a customer base, and you're doing the same kind of stuff, and it's definitely not 10 times better. So you will find this hard. But if you say, I want to get into the coffee business, but actually really start down here, then that's far more successful, more likely to be a successful strategy. And yeah, I think they are the key takeaways from this slide. Let me just double check. Yeah, I think that's it. So they are the types of innovations and how they are best categorized. Now, what do we do to actually exploit that or protect ourselves from them? Is the theory goes, don't just think about your products and services and how they're being consumed. Think about just a little bit further and try to empathize with your customers as to what are they hiring my products and my services for? What jobs are these fulfilling? So say, back to the coffee example, just because I like it. The job to be done for a coffee could just be, as I mentioned earlier, I need to stay awake, I got to pull another shift. The kids got me up really early, I just need to get through the day. That might just be the job to be done that you're being hired for, right? That they're using your services and they're going to you to meet their needs, but the job is actually the core need that they are fulfilling by temporarily, currently using your products and services. They may as well just go to some other provider going forward, but that's the core of it. And if you found that core job of what needs to be done, then and evolve your business around that job. Say, all right, so I started with coffee, but actually maybe caffeine pills, right, would be the next step, or any other sort of consumable goods that help people stay awake or get through the day a bit better. Then the people don't go just to the coffee shop anymore, but there's a very strong, almost emotional connection between their need, what they need to get solved, the problem that they need to fix, and who they go to. So you might be able to far better actually go through this sort of pyramid of, at what do we understand what needs to be done? You understand what's the type of experience that your ideal customer would actually expect from you. Sort of, is it going to be a quick one-stop shop, or is it going to be a big shopping experience? That sort of thing. There's a lot of emotions in this level. And integration is the next one of, but obviously businesses don't swim in a bubble. Am I best placed in a big shopping mall where I'm just integrated in my customers' job to be done of getting their shopping done, and whilst they're getting their shopping done, they also, go to the pharmacy, right? A good example actually, Sainsbury's around the corner has a Lloyd's pharmacy in it. Lloyd's understood that people go shopping and they might as well just pop in their receipt at the pharmacy, and whilst the people at the pharmacy get the medicine ready for you, you can continue your job, and you have integrated into your customer's process and journey. So, usually powerful because it's just more convenient. It makes more sense. They connect shopping with pharmacy, never goes out of their mind. And once you've cracked all these, and they're just titles, so there's a lot of work to be done, but you then have a really strong foundation for a brand because you really understand all the layers, how you interact with your customers. And that's just a really powerful tool, and it's not just for the topic of disruption or innovation and all these fancy words, but is just incredibly powerful for businesses across all industries for the effects we've seen. Another example maybe, just to show how out there it can be, but once you sort of start thinking about it, is Burger King. Not here in the UK, but in the US, they sell loads of milkshakes. Not as popular over here, but in the US they are. And they couldn't figure out, how can I beat my competition with my milkshakes? I make them ever fancier, I make them ever tastier, I introduce chocolate, icing, you name it, all sorts of flavors and features, sizes, offerings, price. Nothing really made any difference. They tested the market with lots of different variations, but nothing really worked. And then, if you read that article, Burger King thought about it in that concept of, what's the job to be done? Why are people hiring that milkshake? What are they achieving with that? And they found people, like their customer segment, they buy them in the early morning because they have a long commute into work. You know, imagine an interstate highway, 4 lanes, constant traffic jam, and they're having that milkshake in their cup holder, and it just keeps them busy. They have something to do, they drink it, keeps their tummy full. Not really nutritious, of course, but it does the job of just, you know, something to be done, something to kind of entertain me almost, and help me with that journey from home into the office in that, you know, horrendous commute that they're facing. And they cracked it because suddenly the competition weren't under other milkshakes anymore. There were bagels, there were bakeries, there were coffee, and they rebranded their whole marketing around this milkshake, around this journey, this literal journey of how they get from A to B into work. And then there are some statistics, you can Google them. It's astounding, you know, it's quite simple in a way, but maybe sometimes simple things are actually more effective. So yeah, that's, I think, really powerful how you can either be even more disruptive, really sort of, you know, if you're at the low end, if you understand that about your customer, how you can really, you know, give the big boys a hard time, or if you are, you know, one of the incumbents, how can I protect myself from other little companies nibbling away on the fringes of my business? If I've understood the job to be done, then, you know, maybe tomorrow I don't sell coffee anymore because, you know, my business is keeping people awake. And you're not worried about the coffee businesses because they've not understood it, what your customers really need. So that's the idea behind that. A few words around the so what. So we've understood the market maybe a little bit better. We know where we are. Are we an incumbent? Are we a low-end disruptor? Who are all the other people in that pool? We spoke a little bit about being better prepared with a better understanding as to what my customer actually needs and then how I can be more successful in the future. But if we look internally, there's a big diagram, lots of words, and maybe try not to start reading, but the key idea is that organizations will not be able to disrupt themselves. So if you think about what in this context an organization is made out of, you have a bunch of resources, fixed assets, you know, apologies for the sort of Americanism, but you can hire and fire them. You know, there are you know, real assets, you can see them, you can touch them. They're real things that we all understand are quite easy to manage because they're tangible. Then we've got all our processes of how do we actually connect our resources, how do we go about procurement, product development, market research, our employment, HR strategies, all that sort of thing. And then the profit formula. Profit formula is a term that's not widely recognized, so but in short, it's how do I decide what I do in this moment. So if I have a bunch of leads that I want to work on, what's my cost base that I need to cover? So therefore I can already chip away a bunch of them because they're never going to reach the threshold. And at the same time, what type of opportunities are right for me? Are they in the right segment that I really want to reach into, or whatever it may be, right? There's a number of criteria. Every business will have some very different ones that will decide as to what I focus my resources on. That makes the key decisions, right? Not managers. Managers manage resources, they set up processes, they may influence the criteria, but actually the people on the ground day to day that are checking their emails, that are calling the customers, they follow their own profit formula as to what they prioritize on and therefore in what direction they drive the business. That's the intro for it. The key takeaway here is, the key point I want to make is, an organization will have one set structure with all these 3 bubbles, and they will be working because they understood they are in the IT hardware business. They sell products, right? Small margin, big quantities, big labels, right? Say, think Fujitsu, IBM, you know, old style IT product businesses. They will be set up in a certain way. Their profit formula will not be driven by high margins because it's an eroded market. It's low margins as it is. If this company then decides, oh, actually I want to start software development because that's where people make their money in, and you ask the same people that are supposed to be selling one type of product and say, oh yeah, by the way, when you talk to BMW, you also actually now, you really need to promote our software services because we are excellent. We're a big brand. We got it all covered. We got the development centers. Everything is there. But the people will be totally. They will find it really hard when you think about a salesperson. What am I going to be after? I have targets to reach. They're really tough because that's how it works. That's how they're being driven. And they want to reach their target because that's how they get their bonus. And that's obviously by design. But they will be contradicting. So they really struggle. And they will typically stick with the old model because that's what they know. That's how the processes and the resources, everything is worked around that. So if you are an incumbent and see an opportunity to do something similar, but maybe in another way, radically different, it will basically not work if you ask the same people to do something just slightly different at the same time. Ideally, what you want to do is you set up a separate organization that can figure it all out, like a little startup. Really start, when you think back of the diagram, at the low end down here, really like, just having a rough idea, starting with market research, really is trying to understand the customer, what's their job to be done, what are the resources I should really pull into this, what are the expertise I need to build up, where is the competition. So they have a lot of figuring out to do, and they need a lot of freedom and need to be empowered to do that. If they are stuck in a big old organization that has been quite successful in their own way, they'll run against the wall all the time. There's just no other way this is going to happen other than if you give them autonomy and separate them out and give them a good chance. That's for if the scenario is a low-end disruption, really something different. If you have an idea of how to make your product better, that's of course the other way around. So you really do want to then use your knowledge about the existing clients and the existing processes and the resources, which are far leaner than any startup can, not leaner is the wrong word, sorry, more established than any startup can ever be. You want to harness that power that you already have and fold it into your existing big old organization and drive sustaining innovation through that. So there's the difference, quite crucial. I think that's a key takeaway here for us. And then lastly, still got a little bit of time, but coming to an end is, so we've talked a lot about the whole process, the market, what we can do internally different to be more successful. One thing we see a lot in our business actually is people are very happy with where they are because it's always been successful. We got it right. We understand our customers. Our margin is brilliant. We're really getting it. But they're being caught out, right? They're suddenly being surprised by something they didn't anticipate. They didn't watch their customers that left them and joined low-end disruptors at the bottom of the market. They weren't sensitive to that, and suddenly they find themselves in a lot of trouble because they've forgotten, or maybe never knew, that their strategy is maybe temporarily quite good, but it's never right, and it's definitely never going to be right just in the short time going forward. Because what roughly happens, if we think about the profit formula that decides as to what I allocate my resources on, I then therefore decide on what are strategic actions I'm going to take to drive the business forward, grow it further, acquisitions, develop new services, you name it, pretty straightforward stuff. You then arrive at an actual strategy, sort of like the things that we really do that hits the ground and drives things forward. But as we do them, as we implement our strategy, we learn up here as to what actually works and what doesn't work, because there's only so much you can plan. You hit the road, and then you find it out what reality is actually all about. And you get better at your deliberate strategy. So you do lessons learned, you reflect on shortcomings and successes, and again, inform your resource allocation process going forward. On the other side, the younger you are, the less secure or the less established your knowledge about yourself, the product, and the customer is, the more you need to keep an eye, an ear on the what do you say? An ear on the ground. We're really listening to talk to your customers that are leaving you. Find out, why are you going away? Why are you going to McDonald's suddenly? We got the best burgers. Why are you going to McDonald's? They're just, what is McDonald's, but rubbish burgers. And you don't understand it. If you don't ask yourself, and if you don't challenge yourself to constantly look for a better answer as to what my strategy should be and what others around me are doing successfully, or maybe not, learn from others people's mistake, then you arrive at an emergent strategy. So again, just to reiterate, if you are in a young stage of a firm or maybe a young market, right, you will have to focus far more on the opportunities that will just bubble up in front of you. You don't know where they're coming from, they sort of surprise you, but if you're not ready to really analyze them, check them out, and embrace them, you obviously, risk missing out and just going the right direction, the wrong direction rather. And the longer you are in the process and the more established you are, the bigger your firm gets, the more you really need to drive a deliberate strategy, because once you've got it figured out, well enough, sort of 80-20 rule, once you've got the 80-20, you might just get sidetracked by constant opportunities that bubble up, and actually they just cost you lots of resources that you'd rather spend on deliberate strategy and deliberate growth.